The equatorial sun beat down mercilessly on the arid, rocky terrain of Komodo Island, pushing the temperature to an unbearable 40 degrees Celsius. Despite the heat, it's just another workday, and before the visitors can enter the park, a security patrol is required. But the day's first tour is interrupted because the park ranger has found a carcass that shouldn't be there. On one of the trails of the national park, sprawled across the hot stones, lay a partially devoured Komodo dragon. But what shocked the ranger wasn't simply finding the animal dead. It was realizing that a creature with no natural predator was lying defeated right in front of him, in a way that was brutal and chilling. Whole chunks of flesh had been torn away, and the monster's skull bore puncture wounds that only an enemy blinded by fury could have inflicted. Most animals that end up in a confrontation with a Komodo dragon also die, thanks to the high concentration of deadly bacteria in its saliva. But whoever, or whatever, did this walked away alive, untouched, immune to any infection. The ranger's mind short-circuited. Anyone familiar with the ecosystem of these isolated islands knows one golden rule, one absolute law of nature that is never broken. The adult Komodo dragon is unbeatable. So who, or what, could be responsible for such a crime? Were humans even safe there? What else is lurking in the brush? That and much more you'll discover today on World Aereo. After all, even with all our technology and satellite mapping, we're still stunned by the ferocity of the creatures that inhabit the wild side of the Earth. So go ahead and hit like, subscribe to the channel so you don't miss any content, and let's get into the video. Indonesia's volcanic islands had just revealed a cold-blooded, deeply disturbing murder. What creature, hidden in the jungles or the savannas, was capable of battling a relentless giant like the Komodo dragon and turning it into a meal? To understand exactly what happened on that dusty trail, we first need to grasp the sheer, oppressive scale of this victim and understand why this reptile is so difficult to bring down. The animal decomposing under Indonesia's punishing sun was the very embodiment of reptilian terror. We're talking about the apex predator of the Lesser Sunda Islands, native to a specific, tiny cluster of isolated islands, Komodo, Rinca, Flores, and Gili Motang. A harsh ecosystem where water is scarce and survival demands a flawless biological design. The Komodo dragon is the largest and heaviest lizard on the face of the Earth. An adult male at his physical peak can exceed 3 meters in length, tail included, and weigh up to 90 kilograms. His forked tongue is a precision chemical radar, capable of tasting the air and detecting the scent of blood or a potential prey animal from nearly 10 kilometers away. Beneath his rough, seemingly flexible skin, the dragon hides a terrifying anatomical secret: osteoderms. Thousands of tiny bony plates, like chainmail embedded in flesh, cover almost his entire body, a true subdermal armor. But that's not all. His massive tail can whip with enough force to shatter a deer's legs. His curved claws can gut a water buffalo, and his mouth, well, that's an even more powerful weapon. His jaw is lined with 60 serrated teeth that, though small, are shaped almost identically to those of a great white shark. To make matters worse for his opponents, the Komodo's skull houses complex venom glands that inject toxins capable of inducing hypotensive shock in his victim, preventing blood from clotting, on top of saliva that carries more than 60 species of bacteria, several potentially fatal to most mammals, humans included. In every practical sense, he is the absolute, untouchable ruler of his domain. So how does the master of the volcanic islands end up as the main course of a macabre feast? The first major suspect, an adversary befitting such brutality, was the undisputed king of the Asian jungle, the Sumatran tiger. Only an apex mammalian predator with tactical intelligence and explosive power could even dream of taking on a Komodo dragon. If you put these two titans in an arena, the tiger would have plenty going for him as the likely favorite. But geography tells a story that shatters this appealing theory. Tigers and Komodo dragons simply don't share the same world. Indonesia is a vast, fragmented archipelago, and nature drew an invisible but impassable boundary between these two beasts: the Wallace Line. The Sumatran tiger lives confined to the dense, humid rainforests of the island of Sumatra, on the country's western edge. The dragon, meanwhile, evolved thousands of kilometers to the east, on the far side of deep ocean trenches. They're separated by unforgiving seas and completely different ecosystems. The shadow killer was not a tiger. The second theory, digging even deeper into Asian wildlife, turned to an aggressive, unpredictable brawler, the Malayan sun bear. Though it's the smallest bear species in the world, it's a compact mass of muscle, teeth, and, above all, claws. The sun bear's claws are long and hook-shaped, built for tearing into solid tree trunks in search of insects and honey. In a direct confrontation, it could unleash frenzied swipes and sharp claw strikes at the reptile's vulnerable eyes, blinding it and inflicting a lethal skull injury. And yet, once again, ecological reality shatters the illusion. The Malayan sun bear is a canopy specialist, requiring dense, humid, rain-soaked tropical forest to survive. Habitats found in Sumatra and Borneo. Drop it under the scorching sun of Komodo Island's dry, open savanna, with no towering trees to climb or cool off in, and the bear would succumb to heat stress within hours. It has never set foot in the dragon's arid kingdom. Our mysterious executioner was still at large, and the list of candidates with the natural biological capability was running out fast. Which brings us, inevitably, to the most dangerous, destructive, and relentless predator the planet has ever produced. A human would make perfect sense. We have a long, dark, well-documented history of wiping out giant species out of fear, sport, or territorial conflict. But the culture of the region points somewhere far outside those parameters. The island's local inhabitants, known as the Komodo people, hold a deeply spiritual and peaceful relationship with the Komodo dragon. To them, the lizard isn't some repulsive monster to be hunted, it's bloodkin. There's an ancient legend, deeply woven into their culture, about a dragon princess who gave birth to twins, a human boy named Gerong, and a female dragon named Aura. The local people call the lizards Aura, and they firmly believe that humans and dragons are siblings, separated by evolution but bound by spirit. For centuries, the Komodo left portions of their own hunted prey in the forest to feed their scaly brothers. Killing a Komodo dragon, to this people, would be the moral equivalent of fratricide, an unforgivable sin. Conflicts between humans and dragons do happen, but they're extremely rare, since anyone who commits such an act is cast out of the family. Even so, we're still left with the fact that the carcass had been partially eaten. No local resident eats Komodo dragon meat. It can actually be harmful to human health. And as if that weren't enough, government regulations and the strict oversight of national park rangers make killing a Komodo dragon a crime with serious penalties. So there was only one possible culprit left, one that forces us to stare straight into the abyss of reptilian nature itself. The brutal killer, the stealthy predator that took down a 90-kilogram beast, was another Komodo dragon. The only animal on the face of the earth with the biological power, the innate ferocity, and the piercing weaponry capable of breaking through an adult monster's defenses, is his own reflection in evolution's mirror. The Komodo dragon is, in a terrifying and systematic way, a cannibal species. And we're not talking about rare or accidental cannibalism. This is a routine practice, hardwired into the species' DNA, a behavior that dictates the island's laws of survival. The giant adults, the scaly patriarchs of the territory, feel absolutely no parental affection, no respect for their own kind. They devour their own siblings and relatives if no other prey is around, and the hunger is real. But it gets worse than that. Females devour their own hatchlings for no apparent reason at all. The young don't need to be sick or malformed to end up as dinner. The mothers simply feed on their own offspring. That's exactly why, the moment they hatch, biology forces the newborns into hiding high in the treetops, surviving on insects for years, just to avoid being torn apart by their own mother or by a neighboring female. And once they're finally strong enough to defend themselves, they climb down to the ground and spend their long lives avoiding conflict with their own kind. Because whoever loses a fight becomes the next meal. Now let's picture, in vivid detail, the crime scene at the exact moment it happened. Night falls over Komodo Island, the temperature dropping but the air still thick and suffocating. We're deep in the dry brush, far from human eyes. The dragon who is now our victim was sleeping beneath the shelter of some tree's twisted roots, confident in his own invulnerability, master of his territory. But sliding through the impenetrable darkness, drawn by the scent of a relaxed, unsuspecting target, comes a male even older, even more colossal, a true titan, scarred by decades of territorial wars. The encounter is not quiet. It's a sudden explosion of primal violence, a clash of fallen gods. The attacker strikes under cover of darkness, and what follows is a fight without mercy. The two giant monsters rear up, bracing on their thick tails, jaws thrust forward, dripping with toxin. They look like reincarnated dinosaurs. The more experienced fighter brings down the younger one, and now feasts on him under the moonlight, a battle as primitive as its gladiators. But if they fought, why didn't the surviving dragon succumb to the bacteria in his opponent's saliva, or to the toxins from his venom glands? Simple, they're immune. That's precisely why they can eat members of their own species without suffering any harm to their health. Broadly speaking, this behavior, which sounds like something out of a biological horror film, isn't a flaw in nature. It's the most efficient design possible. Cannibalism functions as the perfect population break for a closed island ecosystem, where resources at home are strictly limited. If every single hatchling survived, the island would be devastated by overpopulation. Local livestock, deer, and pigs would vanish within months. And then, the entire lizard species would disappear from the map due to mass starvation. The Komodo dragon is one of the very few species that doesn't need both sexes to reproduce. In the absence of males, a female can self-fertilize her eggs through a process called parthenogenesis. So imagine an isolated island where nothing checks the predator population, where that same predator can multiply entirely on its own without even needing the opposite sex. It would be total chaos. They'd dominate the island within just a few years. In that light, cannibalism is the regulator nature devised to maintain the balance. Its brutality doesn't drive them toward extinction. It's the only guarantee that they'll keep existing, and that only the toughest, fastest, deadliest genetics will reach the top of the food chain. And yet, there's a bitter irony in this story. The master of the island, undefeated in hand-to-hand combat against any beast, including his own kind, is losing a war against the one enemy he can't sink his teeth into. Today, the Komodo dragon is classified as a threatened species, on the edge of extinction, not because of his violent biology, but because of the actions of modern humanity. Rising ocean levels driven by global climate change are slowly drowning the coastal lowlands, shrinking the already scarce kilometers of dry land where these creatures can survive. At the same time, the relentless spread of human settlements and deforestation around their last refuges is silently reducing the availability of natural prey, lighting the fuse on a ticking time bomb for these scaly kings. What we found in that scorching ravine wasn't just the violent end of one lizard devoured by another. It was a chilling glimpse into the primal rules of an ancient world, one we're destroying little by little. I want to know your honest opinion. Given everything we've just uncovered, if you could watch this grotesque marvel of real-life evolution unfold, invisible, right in front of you, who would you say is the true monster of this story? The starving dragon who sees no difference between the throat of a deer and the throat of his own blood brother, in the name of the species' relentless drive to survive? Or is it us, watching from a distance with admiration, while our industrial smokestacks are quietly wiping off the map, the one island these titans can still call home? Leave your most honest answer in the comments below. Hit like and subscribe to the channel. Thanks for watching.